We have classes from Woodburn, Scappoose, Halsey, Willamina, Condon, Hillsborough, Redmond, Vale, Pendleton, Terrebonne, Ontario. So thank you so much for joining us for this virtual field trip. Today we are live in Cheshire, Oregon at Schroeder Brothers Christmas Tree Farm. My name is Brittany and I'll be the moderator today. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few logistics to make sure everyone has a great experience. We've muted everyone and everyone will remain muted throughout the whole tour so everyone can hear our tour guide clearly. If you have questions, you can send them to us using the chat feature. It is now my pleasure to introduce our host and tour guide for today's virtual field trip, Kirk Schroeder. Take it away, Kirk.
Morning, everybody. We're out here in Cheshire, Oregon, virtually the middle of the Willamette Valley. We are a family business that's been in the farming industry for over 100 years. And what we're going to show you today is one of our different things that we grow, crops we grow, is Christmas trees. And what we're out here in a field right now, and this is a field of newly planted seedlings. We put them in this year. So these trees are just 1 year old. And you can see in my hand is a cone, and you'll see these on fir trees, pine trees. This is where the seed comes from. If you break the cone open, you can look down in there, and that is a viable seed. So what outfits do, they get these seeds, they put them in a nursery, and they'll raise them. This is a 2-year-old seedling. So what they'll do, they'll grow these for 2 years in a nursery. They will lift them out of the nursery. We go pick them up, and then we come back out and we plant them in our fields. And the trees here are noble fir, excuse me. So we grow different species on the farm. We grow Nordman fir, noble fir, Douglas fir, and grand fir. This is a noble. We've got other fields that we have of the other species. And what we have, you can see the growth was pretty good, but we did have some mortality this year with the heat, the dry summer that we had some trees that died on us. What we had to do, about in the middle of summer, we were noticing the moisture in the ground was getting pretty slim. So we set up a water system, a drip system we put out and laid out into the fields. And we gave each of the tree about 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons of water. That let the tree survive, and it made it through the rest of the summer. And realistically, the survival, what we have here, I would imagine there's roughly 5,000 trees in this field. And I don't think that we maybe lost maybe 100 seedlings out of this, which at that, I'm very happy. The seedling, when we buy this seedling from a nursery, this is a 50-cent tree for every one. So if we lose that tree, we lost 50 cents, and then I've got to put another one back in the hole and the labor to get that tree planted back. So this is a 1-year-old field, and we will walk over and show you a field that is 3 years old. Most people think that Christmas trees, they're cut out of the top side of trees and forests. We don't do that here. This is a farm. We raise the trees just for the Christmas tree sales. Now we're walking into a field. These are 3-year-old trees. You can see how much bigger they are. What we've done now, once to get to be this size, we come back in, we'll cut the bottom branches off and let that tree keep growing. The reason we cut the bottom branches off is because when we come and cut this tree off down here, in 5 more years, we'll take this tree. And when we cut it off down here, if the branches go all the way to the bottom, your mom and dad are going to be cussing me for not being able to put their stand on the tree. There's no place they're going to have to cut the branches off. So that's why we do that. And then once a tree gets this big, we really don't do much culturing to it. We just let the tree keep growing. And then once they get a little bit bigger, that's when we come back in, and then we'll start culturing the tree. We do have Nordman fir also in this field here, but they're over there. If you want to see the difference between So when now we're going and looking at a field, this field is 6-year-old trees. This is that tree we just seen a second ago, the 3-year-old seedling. That's what this will look like in 6 years. What we'll do then, once the tree starts getting bigger, we'll come back in with clippers and we'll keep the tree tipped back and let the top go. So we can just keep getting it taller. But once the tree starts getting to be in this size, we'll start cutting the top. So it'll thicken the tree up. We'll make a more pretty tree. It won't be so spacey. And also we have in this field is Doug fir. And we do the same thing with growing Doug fir. We'll let them grow up, but we'll walk over here and I'll show you how we end up culturing the Doug fir. We use a machete because a Doug fir grows a lot more than what a noble fir does. So we have to shear them back. Once they get to be a 4-year-old tree, our crew that works for us, they'll use a machete like this. It's just a great big sharp, super sharp knife. And what they'll do, they'll come in and they'll shear the tree back. They'll cut off all the growth that sticks out. And that's when we end up shaping it up into this cone looking shape. So that's what we have to do every year to Doug fir once they get to be 4 years old up until the harvest time, to be able to keep them in this shape. If not, they get really bushy and wide and won't be appealing to the customers.
We do have a few
Any
questions. Yes. How old are the trees when they get harvested for the different varieties?
It depends. Usually a tree, the Doug fir grow faster than what a noble or a Nordman does. So we'll cut a Doug fir like this in usually 7 years, but a noble, they take longer. So that's 8 to 9 to 10 years is what it takes before they get to be a 7 to an 8 foot tree. Another question?
How do you protect trees from animals and pests?
You can't see it here, but we have some over there. What we have is rabbits. The kids over in Eastern Oregon, you know what jackrabbits are. We have jackrabbits here, and they'll come out into the fields. They really don't eat them, and I don't know why, but they just cut the tree off and leave it laying right there. Once the tree gets to be 3 years old, if it's a bigger stem and they can't chew it in two or whatever, but they don't bother, but they don't eat them. They just cut them off, and I have no idea why. Next question.
How tall can trees grow?
We've had some trees that we've sold before that have gone up to 20 feet tall. Where those will usually go to, we sent a 20-footer to Salinas, California, and the city, they put it in their little mall area. So that's where usually the bigger ones go to, is a city square or a shopping mall will do it also. Or some people do have big houses for it, but mainly they go to city malls.
What is the shortest tree you've ever grown?
We've got some trees that we've got that are 2 to 3 feet tall. What we'll do, that goes for maybe your grandmother wants a tree, or somebody in an office, or if you have a small house or apartment and you still want a tree, you go ahead and put a tree in.
How many Christmas trees are on your farm?
We've got 160 acres here, and we probably have got 600,000-700,000 trees here. We plant, when we're planting trees, we plant them on 5.5 by 5.5. That's 1,500 trees per acre. But when for the smaller trees, we also plant them for that. So we'll shorten up our spaces. We'll plant them 3 feet by 5.5 feet. So then what we do then is, in 4 years, we take every other tree out. We take it for a small tree, and then the other tree we leave for a big tree.
What is the most challenging part of your job?
getting the trees to harvest in a timely fashion for our getting them to our retail customers. We're dealing with trucking, we're dealing with labor, we're dealing with weather. You add all those together and it organized chaos is what we kind of call Christmas tree harvest. Um, it's hard to be able to get all the trees out in a timely fashion because most of our customers that we sell to, they'll take they'll take 3 to 4 foot trees, and then they'll take up to a 15-foot tree, and of all different species. So then when we're loading a freight truck, we're trying to get all those different sizes onto that freight truck.
Okay, and I'm going to screen share real fast and show you a video of how they harvest, since they're not flying a helicopter today there, but they have in the past at this farm. So I'm going to start my screen share real fast.
The baler's not. What you're seeing here is a helicopter we use for bringing trees in. It's in a very expensive process. It's $1,100 an hour to use the helicopter, but we're on a hill here and it gets steep and muddy. So what we're doing, we'll bring the trees, we cut them and bundle them up. In this picture here, you can see the person down there with the yellow coat. Those trees are all bundled up we call them in a sling, and they got ropes around them. The helicopter comes in and picks that up, and then he flies it back to the main landing where we're standing here. At that distance there where the helicopter's at, that was probably 50 seconds from where he picks it up and where he brings it back in and drops it. And then when we drop the bundle there, what we see is a crew, they'll pull the ropes back out of it. There's another picture of them coming in and picking up the bundle. They hook them up. And he just picks them up takes them up in the air and takes them down to the landing. It's a very quick and efficient way to be able to get trees into our landing. And then that's where we start the processing of baling them up and sizing them.
So how many
what we're seeing, go ahead.
How many workers do you use to harvest the trees?
We harvest, or we hire 20 people. It takes to do, we're going to probably do 20 to 25,000 trees this year is what we will harvest. And it takes right at 20 people to be able to do that. We started harvest November 15th is when we started. We have to get enough trees out because all of our customers want trees the week before Thanksgiving so they can have their lots all set up and have their sales ready for the day after Thanksgiving is when they'll open up their lots, and that's when they start selling trees. What we have here, we call it our baler. And for the people in Eastern Oregon, not a hay baler, but this is a Christmas tree baler. And what we do, we've got a shaker on the back side of it, a vibrating cone. We put it in, and what it does, it shakes out a lot, not totally, but it shakes out a lot of the needles out of it. And what they do then, we bring it up, we put it in a set of jaws, and they'll pull it through the baler. And we've got our twine cans that go around and around. And then what they do, then they'll cut the string and they'll slide it down. And the table here has gone the other side. It's different colors. So like that tree there, that was a 6 to a 7 foot. we'll take it out, we'll put it into a pile of 6 to 7 foot trees. All the trees are sized that way and separated and put into different piles. So when we have a freight truck that comes in, he maybe wants 100 6 to 7 foot trees, and then maybe he wants 50 to 5-6 trees. So that's how we know that what trees to put on a freight truck, because they'll be all sized here. You can see it when the tree is put in the end of the baler, how bushy it is. And then the expansion cones slide it down and bring the tree into this nice slender looking, so they don't break the branches when we ship them.
How many trees do you harvest in a year?
We will be between 20 or 25,000 trees is what we'll end up doing this year.
What do you do with the trees that you don't sell?
We sell them all. We've got the only trees that we usually don't sell, and it'd be a tree that has got a broken top, and one of our workers' wives make the wreaths. So what we'll end up doing, if we get a tree that's got a broken top and we can't sell it, she'll take it and cut the branches off of it and make wreaths out of it, and for door swags and stuff for your house. So virtually the way the market is right now, the sales are really strong. We can sell every tree that we want to cut and sell. We don't have anything left over.
Have any of the trees fallen off the helicopter before?
Every now and then, yes, we do. We'll get one that'll fly out, and that's what we try. When the helicopter's doing the flying, he makes sure that he's not flying over people or vehicles and stuff, because if a rope breaks or if a tree does come out, yes, that does come. You don't want to see that happen, but yes, that does happen sometimes.
Where do your trees go?
What was that?
Where do your trees go? Where do you ship them?
Most of our trees go to California, the San Francisco area, or the Los Angeles. We do have a couple of loads that go to Texas.
And do you have any local tree lots?
We don't have any of our own, but yes, we sell to a couple of lots in Eugene. They come do the same thing like the other ones do. They'll come pick up trees and then take them back and put them in their lots in Eugene.
What is your favorite part of being a tree farmer?
I don't have to deal with people other than this time of the year. I'm out here virtually by myself when I'm working in the fields. You don't have a lot of people. You don't have cars. You don't have noise. The only thing that's talking to you is the trees, and they never answer back when I talk to them. So.
And why did your family choose to grow Christmas trees?
We were growing mainly grass seed and wheat for years, and we wanted to be a little bit more diversified. And so we had some ground that would be suitable for Christmas trees. So we started planting Christmas trees on that ground, and it's just kind of grown into what we're doing today. So that's how we got started.
How many trees can a helicopter carry at one time?
The helicopter likes to take about 700 pounds is what they want to fly. So it just depends on the size of the tree. Like the trees here, these are probably 40 pounds a tree. So you would do the math. We would usually end up putting 10, 12 trees, something like that, in a sling. But when we do some big noble fir, we've got some that we only fly 1 or 2 trees in at a time, because they're that big of a tree and that heavy. The helicopter can only lift that much.
How difficult is it to get into the Christmas tree business?
Into the season?
Into the Christmas tree business.
It would probably be pretty hard. You have to have the right ground to be able to grow the trees on. And also, like we were showing you, it takes 7 years. Those first trees that we showed you, that's 1-year-old tree. I'm not going to get any money back out of that for another 8 to 9 years. So it's hard to get into it unless you get into it small, or you've got money from something else to be able to start into the business.
Are there different colors of trees?
Uh, just green. We do have some dead ones, but they're red, but we don't sell those.
Do you remove the pine cones?
Pardon?
Do you remove the pine cones for the seeds?
No, we don't. There's a outfit that does that. They'll come and pick the pine cones, and they're getting the seed comes from like a noble fir. The seed source where that comes from is up on Alpha Mary's Peak. There's noble fir that grow naturally up there. So that's where they go up to is go up the high altitude in the mountains and be able to get the seed.
What is your favorite type of Christmas tree to grow and why?
It used to be the noble fir, but now we're starting to grow some of the Nordman fir, the Turkish fir, and I'll go back on the Nordman fir and the Turkish fir. The seed that comes from the Nordman fir comes from the state of Georgia, and it's part of the old Russia. That's how far this seed comes from. It's not native to United States. So that's how far the seed comes. It's a tree that we're growing now and growing more of it. It's a really super hardy tree, and it's kind of a fun tree to grow. We have got a field down here that we are letting to go, let them go wild, and we will be starting as of next year picking our own cones off our own trees and raising our own seed. So here in 2 years, we'll be planting seedlings off of our own farm.
How do you tell the difference between the different types of trees?
Once you out here and do this enough, you can be able to tell the different species by looking at them. Like I said, when I was showing you the shearing with the Doug fir, they're more of a thicker cone shaped. The noble fir are more of the layered, more of a little bit of a spiky look to them. So once you're out here enough, you do know the difference. The number one seller and the Cadillac of trees is a noble fir. They're the kind of the premium tree. We sell more nobles than we do Douglas. They keep very well in a house. They don't dry out. They have good smell. Doug fir, they tend to see if you don't keep them in water, they have a tendency to dry out just a little bit faster than with the noble fir. But if both of them, the varieties, when you put them in your house, if you put them in a water stand and keep water in the stand, and keep them out of direct sunlight. Don't put them in front of the picture window so you have direct sunlight coming in, and that's just that much more heat on them. But they'll last through the season very well if you keep water on them.
How long does it take for you to harvest your trees?
It'll take 3.5 weeks to be able to get all of our trees cut and brought in and processed and put on freight trucks. We're getting down to the end of the season right now. It's kind of a tricky. We've got 5 more freight trucks to go, and we get about an average about 700 to 800 trees on a freight truck. So we don't want to have some trees left over, but we don't want to be short the trucks. We want to make sure we have the exact numbers. So now we play the game of, do we need more or do we have enough to be able to have our trees out?
And how do you water all of the trees?
We don't water the bigger trees. We did water our seedlings this year where it was so dry, but once the tree gets to be 2 years old, we don't need to water them anymore. There'll be enough moisture in the ground for that tree to survive without having to water.
What type of tree grows the fastest and is the healthiest?
The fastest would be the Douglas fir. The healthiest would be the Nordman fir. For whatever reason, it doesn't get any root disease. It's just a healthier tree. We don't have any kind of problems with that with the Nordman fir.
How many seeds do you need to grow one full-size tree?
Seeds?
Yes.
Oh, just one seed will grow. If it's got a good germination in that seed, it will grow one tree. You don't need to have extra. Each seed that comes out of that cone will be a new tree. That's why a lot of times you'll see little seedlings when you're out walking in the forest or something. You'll see a little seedling that's coming up through the ground. Well, that more than likely was a bird was eating it, or a squirrel was eating that cone and dropped a seed, and it got covered up by soil and it sprouts on its own.
How do you prepare the land before you plant new seedlings?
What we do, I don't know if you can be able to see up there in the foreground where we've got the green. That is my cover crops. A year ago, that was in trees, just like the field next to it. And what we do, we go in and take the stumps out. I will take the stumps out, work the ground back down, and we will go back in and take soil samples of it to find out what the analysis in the soil. And if we need to put lime or if we need to put different fertilizers, we will do that. And then we put a cover crop for 2 years. And what is that's doing? That's building up the humus back in the soil, putting more organic matter in there. And it's also holding it so we don't have any erosion. And then 2 years later, that's when we end up coming, and the field that you're seeing right here, that looked green last year. And we work the oats back into the soil, and that's how we prepare our ground.
Do storms ever hurt the trees?
Not really, but well, I say that we had a heavy wet snowstorm a couple of years ago, and on the Doug fir, what it did, the snow was so heavy and it was sitting here, it pulled the branches down, and we did have some broken branches on some Doug fir, but that was just very seldom that we get that heavy of a snow.
And the last question of the tour, do you use any of the Christmas trees yourself?
Yes. Where I'm out here all year long, I guess I'm kind of particular what I put in our house. So I get to see when you're driving around or whatever. So you're always looking for the perfect tree for your house. So yes, I did, and I've already got it in our house, and it is a Turkish fir this year that looks very good. My wife finished decorating it day before yesterday, and it's beautiful.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your farm with us today, Kirk. And thank you, students and teachers, for joining us today. We hope you learned something new about Christmas trees. And have a great rest of your day.